Welcome back to SwitchedtoLinux. Well, I've had a lot of requests to do more videos from LibreOffice, and another one that somebody asked me to do before and I just haven't gotten to it is how do you use LibreCalc to do budgeting? And this is kind of a modification of the budgeting form that I use. Of course, I don't use budgeting apps or other budgeting programs, despite there certainly are some and are some decent ones out there. I'm a spreadsheetophile, and I just enjoy playing around with the numbers and seeing numbers, and so this is actually a modification of my sheet here for all my budgeting. So to do this, and if I'm going to be doing more tutorials and whatnot, I did decide to go ahead and update LibreOffice to the latest version. So I'm now on 6.1.3.2, still running Linux Mint 18.3. I did a video in the past about how to update your LibreOffice software among other software. Basically just means you're adding a repo and then re-updating the system. So here we are, and we are on LibreCalc. And basically what I have here is a spreadsheet that has all of your different months here. And some of the things, one change that I did note inside of LibreOffice 6 is they do actually have the ability to multi-select and manipulate multiple sheets at the same time. Last I knew in 5, that was still missing. So there I got rid of those banks which were actually out of date. There might be some other things that I've missed or out of date. So to break this down, of course, I believe in following a very good solid budget. I also believe in utilizing cash. And so one of the things that I have done is I have gone through and I have adjusted and developed an envelope side, a overall budgeting side, and I do have two primary accounts that money could be coming and going out of at will. And so what I did here is we have 12 nearly identical sheets, which are merely our differences for one for each of our months. I have my overall master budgeting form. I have a listing of any donations. I have what I call my non-monthly log. This allows me to keep track of how things are going. You see how old this sheet is. I've never updated this individual year. Old sheet here. And then I do have a savings account allocation. And so basically I use my savings account for both an emergency fund and a non-monthly, or what is more oftentimes called in finance a sinking fund. We'll talk about that. In fact, let's just go ahead and talk about that now. So on my budget sheet over here, I have my donations set out over here, the donations I'd like to donate to, whether it's church, various charities listed out. My envelopes, this corresponds to the amount of cash that comes out of my accounts any given month. And then I just have all of the other items. And then down here where you find this non-monthly, this would actually be called a sinking fund in the world of finance. What that basically means is that we're putting aside money knowing that we have a bill coming up that's bigger because it doesn't show up every month. So for example, car insurance. If you pay your car insurance monthly, you're paying too much. Start setting aside a little bit of money each month so that when the next renewal comes, you pay the whole 6 months or a year or whatever it is out at a time, and you get a whole lot less charges for that. Oftentimes as much of an entire monthly payment difference between paying it all up front and paying it at one point. Of course, I did oil changes. I need to take the cats to the vet at least once a year. I have to pay quarterly taxes, which is a total nightmare. And then I account for other things that we just, whatever. And then, of course, I live in a state with has car inspections. Now, what you see here is these are items that are non-monthly. I have to be planning for them. They are coming up no matter what. They will be here. So this is the actual amount each time I see that item. And then this is times per year. Just come up here and just double click on this. It'll hiding out my column to my width there, times per year. So my car insurance is biannual, so it means I pay it every 6 months. So I'm paying $500 twice a year, $1,000 for insurance. Okay, oil changes, 30 twice a year, 60. Cats, of course, is just once a year. Quarterly taxes, of course, that's quarters, so 1,500 4 times a year. I throw in this other just because, rainy day, you don't know what's coming on, and if I can just throw an extra $50 a month away into the account, then that's really good thing to do. And then car inspection, it usually doesn't cost $300, but my car's getting old, so I have to account for the fact that I might be needing parts done here and there, so I throw a little bit more into that. So then what happens is I take my amount that I have here and then multiply it by the number of times per year. So you can see what my formula is up here, where it takes my budget line and the column, multiply these together to give me my final yearly cost. And then I have all these. And then down here at the bottom, we have a sum. So equals capital sum parentheses and the range starting at budget E24 and then colon meaning all the way to budget E30. So it's that, you can see that blue part there. So it's basically taking all these together and forming a sum. And then I take this sum and I divide it by 12. The amount of sum divided by 12 to tell me how much I need to put aside every single month for this fund. Now, that is my sinking fund. Of course, my envelopes, same thing. The amount for groceries, the amount for gas, and for entertainment, restaurants below. Total account here. Once again, this is a summary. And then over here, any donations get the same way. Now, when I come over to my actual budget over here, the donations, the non-monthly, and the envelopes do not ever get manually changed over on this form. You can see what those are doing is these are pulling in from this sheet. Donations, of course, is pulling from F13. All right. My non-monthly is pulling from E32, which is adjusted simply by moving numbers around on that form. And then my envelopes is adjusted by I14. So these are just adjustments for the summary. So you can see that I actually have a few extra blank lines in between. That's because I might need to add categories or things. And of course, your first couple times you're doing this, you're probably going to want to adjust some things around, move some numbers around, just to adjust for other things. I also, you can see, have an adjustment over here for extra items showing up here. But again, this is my donations, this is the rent, and then you add your various utilities there. And then what we can see down here is we have our total amount, which is another sum, and then my yearly amount takes my total budget amount and tells me, so this is kind of my target income, at least this, and hopefully more, assuming that these numbers are correct, which, by the way, they're not. Placeholder data. All right, so that's my budget form. Donations, this is just very simple. Mostly I do this so I can print this out, save it for the tax records. All I effectively have here is my total simply takes the sum of the yellow column. So when it comes to entering in a donation, I just enter my date, tell me what it is. Is it a check number or a credit card transaction, whatever that number happens to be, and then hit the number here. And then this categorizes this nice and easy. This one here is, again, just mostly a manual item. What I see on this grid here is just what my estimateds are, so I can quickly see, so I'm recording this in November, so I know I have at least, actually I'm recording this in December. Oh Lord, it's December. So December and January, so in February, I'm going to have to make sure I have enough in there for car insurance. So basically it kind of gives me an overhead view. And then what I end up doing is if there's other things that get added to this, whatever else, I can actually add more things and then I'll drop it in from year to year. And this helps me refine the amount that goes into that non-monthly. And then I just keep a log of every transaction going over here. So again, description, the date, and the amount. And then I just get a yearly. At the end of the year, I can see how much came out of that. I can then compare that to my sinking fund. Savings account, this one's very similar, except now we have added a different category. You'll see that you see the categories over here where I have E and N. So here's what happens is we can do a sum if. So the sum if is a formula. It's called sum if, all capitalized sum if. And what this is going to do is it's going to compare my entire column. In this case, it's that column from C7 all down. And then what it's going to do is if If it takes a certain form, then it's going to add it. If it doesn't take a certain form, it does not. So what we're seeing here is we are going to take a sum of column C, starting at C7, but we are going to compare that to column D, starting at D7. And anywhere where column D equals the letter E, it gets added to the sum. If it does not equal the letter E, it does not get added to the sum. So I have one of those for E and I have one of those for N. This allows me to keep my general balance correct in my savings account, but now I have a brief view as to what is actually an emergency fund and what is actually a sinking fund, which allows me to budget more. Of course, if you're getting out of debt, and I like following Dave Ramsey's plan, if anything over $1,000 in an emergency fund while we have debt, we shouldn't do that. So what this translates for me is Dave Ramsey does not talk about sinking funds or non-monthly funds, and I actually think it's a major oversight in his teaching because and if you ask him on it, he'll answer the question. He knows this exists. I just think he's trying to make the course a little bit too simple. And for me, I don't care if I have exactly $1,000 in the emergency fund, what is the overlap between them, but I like to have a general view because once this emergency fund crosses $1,000, I'm not going to allocate any more in my savings account, in my budget to send to my savings account. But anything extra that drops into that account anyway, it just goes into non-monthly. So I don't keep $1,000 in my savings account. I keep $1,000 plus whatever my current sinking fund is. And I don't mind going over. I'm not going to relentlessly pull out money. If I end up with $1,060, I'm not going to take $60 out of the savings account to apply it somewhere else because the non-monthly funds are coming, people. The non-monthly funds are coming. And so this allows me to keep a general view. But again, once this emergency fund crosses 1,000, I'm not going to allocate anything else in my budget for it. You can see here I have a line somewhere. Oh, there it is. So I have a line in my budget saying we're going to put $200 in my savings account. Once that savings account allocation crosses 1,000, this goes away to nothing, and I might simply take this and add it to the debt column. That's really what I would do. And then, of course, as life happens and whatever else, you might pull out of that savings account for an emergency fund, and then you just back off from the debt a little bit, increase the savings account a little bit. The savings system with this sum if is a very good thing for keeping track of what's where. That's why I do it. All right, so on to the bulk of the whole thing. This is, we have a list for each month. Now, this one here, to be perfectly honest, I don't generally use this form quite as much as I could. If you click in and get in Formula, don't click on another cell. Just push enter. Otherwise, it's going to add that to that cell. I basically have an allocation here, but I'm not quite personally as good at keeping up on this one. I generally don't go over the allocated amount of cash that I have, given thing. All right, now again, I said I have two checking accounts here. This is a lot easier if you don't have two. I just happen to have two. There's reasons why I'm not going to go into here. But literally, I actually, though, for a fun note, the savings account, the checking account on the right, this is the only one that I ever use for any online payment. This one on the left is actually my primary one that gets used for primary basic stuff. And so if there's ever a breach in online things, it only hits my minor account that rarely gets used. And so that's really part of why it's there. It's kind of an extra safety protocol to make sure that my primary account does not get, drained in the account, something gets stolen, hacked, breached, whatever else, because, that just seems to happen every day these days. All right, now, as far as what we have, you can see in my budget list at the top, you can see that I have basically what it's listed. Okay, and then I have a code. Guess what this code is? Well, I'm doing a sum if. Because what's going to happen is my expense, you'll see my expenses are actually sum ifs. Now, I actually have two sum ifs put together, one for each. So we can see here what we are doing is this one actually shows up clearly. I think the other one didn't because of the highlighted cells. It was probably there, just didn't see it. So we can see here that the blue part, it's going to take a sum of The red part is the sum on the left account. The blue part is the category. So if if column D matches the letter D for donation, it's going to add it to the sum of the red. If it doesn't match it, it's going to ignore it. And then, of course, I have the same on the account on the right. So the pink is my category, and my the green is the actual amount. So this allows me to do a sum if. So for example, if I were to be making a donation to the church, so here's a church donation. Let's say I'm going to do check 101. And let's just say this is capping on December 1st. Okay, so check 101, I put in my budget code D, and then I say, okay, this is a $200 check. Okay, now what you'll see automatically is that my donations now goes out to $200. Of the allocation of $350, now I have 57% allocated. Of course, what's that? Very simply, I'm taking the amount expensed, dividing this by the actual allocation, and then turning this into a percentile. Now, it doesn't do that with everything because, of course, I do have to pay some rent. So let's say check 102 happened on 12/2, and I paid my rent of $1,000. You'll see now that my rent now goes out, so this number is impacted by this. So now I have a way to log this. And of course, I didn't pay it from that account. I can just kind of do it over here. So let's say 12/1 and check 102, and this was rent. Budget code is R, and then the amount of 1,000. And you'll see that now this goes. Now, what I'm going to do here is to keep a current balance, and this would literally be my checkbook balance. This number gets manually entered at the first of the year. This equals the balance on the last day of the previous month. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do equals. I'm going to push up to get me my current balance. I'm going to subtract from this my amount. All right. So, of course, I didn't have $500 in there, so now it's showing up as a negative balance. Whoops! Looks like I gotta make a deposit, man. Oh boy, I gotta not balance my checkbook, so we're gonna go a deposit here, cash, and then I'm just gonna leave my budget code blank. We'll talk about flow code in a minute. I'm gonna say, so now, though, what I'm actually do is just for simplicity, I literally put negative 600, meaning that $600 is going back into the account. And so now I can pull this down. Whew! I have some money back in the account now. All right. So, of course, I leave all these. Now, the flow code. Let's talk about this. This, I simply use an out and an in. And what it does is it balances my inflow and outflow up here. Which, by the way, this is kind of an antiquated. I have not actually looked at these numbers in a long time. It doesn't work quite as well as when I didn't have both accounts. You can see what it's doing is it's actually taking... let's see, what's it doing? It's taking the original balance. It is... Okay, let's see. It's taking the... I gotta remember. Okay, so it's taking the amount of money that came in, subtracting the amount of money that came out, and it's adding the two initial starting balances. It'll just kind of give me a running total balance of all of my money and all of my accounts. Again, I don't really use that function very much. I just run each account independently of each other. But that's effectively what the budget code is for. It simply keeps those inflow and outflows going. I might even drop that off of this thing because... it really is something that I haven't been using in quite a long time. But that's kind of how I work on this. Now, something else to point out. How do I actually add my numbers each month? Well, what I do is the allocation. What the allocation is, you'll see it says $budget dot. That is the spreadsheet's code for go to the tab called budget and grab line C5. You'll see this is C6, C7, C8, etc. down the line. So look at budget, C5 corresponds to this one right here. So what this is if I were to come over here and go, that's too much. My church is going a little downhill lately. Let's go ahead and do that. you'll see it will actually update this over on this side. So you have to account for that, because once the month starts, you're not allowed to change your budget, and you want to keep a historical amount. So what I'm actually do is I work on the budget at the start of the month. And then now I'm going to copy this, and then I'm going to paste special. And then what I can do is if I just paste numbers, it's going to give me this dialog because I'm overwriting data. Hit yes. Now what happens is, that should have copied just the numbers. Let's do paste special. I think, that's right, because the number, if the number will copy the number, but it will copy a formula if it's a formula. We have to paste special, and we are going to do just text, I believe. If we do numbers, I think it goes formulas. If we do text, it takes all those numbers out and pastes them as text. Oops, that wasn't it. Copy and paste special. Let's just do numbers. Oh, okay, that's right, because it's formulas I want to make sure I don't do. So yes, we're going to overwrite existing data. There you go. That's what it was. It's formulas. The copy and paste will bring formulas. Number on the quick list will also bring formulas. But what I did the next time is I went with just text, but these were numbers. You have to do numbers, but deselect formula. So now what this is going to do is you'll see that it is now numbers. So if I go back and say, okay, that was just a misunderstanding. Let's go ahead and give the church more money back. Now this jumps back up to the 350. This is still maintains at 300. So at the start of the month, I'm going to copy these. I'm going to paste special, only numbers. And now that locks the budget into these. All right, so, and then you can see over here, of course, if I need to add another things, like you'll see here, I didn't add streaming services, and that's because I actually don't pay for streaming services. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy any other one of these. We're just going to copy that. All right, now I'm going to come over here, and let's just call this SS. And what we're going to do is we don't want to paste here. We want to click up into here and paste. And then what we are going to do is find this guy right over here, make sure I'm not overwriting those quotes, and hit SS. This is case sensitive. Hit SS, hit enter, and now this is set to go with there. And let's just pull this guy down to make sure that it is pulling the percentage correctly. So now if I come over here and I say, wait, okay, let's, Netflix, is it Netflix? I don't know, I don't use Netflix, I don't know how it's spelled. We have to use our budget code of SS. Let's say it's out, and let's say they charge us $12 for the month. Boom. Now my streaming services is at $12. So I keep these blanks in here so I can easily add some without messing up my form. Of course, if you have a lot more line items than this, then edit this before you even get started. Let's talk about an error and kind of a bug in Calc real quick. And that is the, you can see this was actually my test one here. So our borders, there seems to be an error with the borders where if I wanted to add like a thick border, you'll see it only really fixes the border on the top and the bottom. And so if you accidentally overwrite these borders, you want to do that like this one here. I would kind of like to have darker borders around the whole thing. So what we're going to do is we're going to highlight this part. Instead of using the toolbars for border, I'm going to hold Control Push 1. This is going to bring up the thing. I think it's under Edit, it's Format Cells. I think it's under Edit, Format Cells. And so we're going to go to the Borders tab over here. And then this guy here is where we need to kind of start doing some adjustments. And so we're going to come over here. And this is the thing that there just seems to be an issue with LibreOffice. Now make sure you're not crossing over the middle or you're going to get literal crosses through your thing. So make sure those are kind of blank. And then grab your styles, set your width, do this, and that's what gives us our thicker borders. That is a little bug in this application. It makes it slightly harder to work with than Excel, but it is very easily fixable. You just can't do it from the toolbars here. I hope that they would fix it, but oh well. All right, so that is kind of how you can use this with this. Now, suppose you like little pretty colors to indicate how well you're doing so you can quickly see. Let's talk about how to do conditional formatting. Okay, so conditional formatting, we're going to highlight the cell, and then the toolbar is over here under conditional formatting. You can also right-click the cell and, okay, actually, I think you have to go conditional formatting first. I thought that was in there. I think you can do it under format as well, the format menu. Let's see if I can find it here. Yep, conditional formatting here. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to set some conditions in the cell. And so what we're going to do is we're going to do three basic conditions. Green means there's money to be spent. Yellow means, whoa, slow down a little bit there. And red means, whoa, you're in danger zone. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to take the cell value. We are going to set it less than, and we are going to do, since these are percents, remember, we're going to go with, 0.25. All right. And then what we're going to do is we're going to apply a color to it. And I think good will work. So there we go. So we apply the style apply. Now we're going to hit add, and we're going to do another cell value, and we're going to do between. So between 0.25 and let's say 0.85. This one we want to do a yellow. I think neutral will give us a yellow. Good. And then now we're going to add another one. Greater than 0.85, and this we want to have, I think bad will give us red. All right, so now we push this, and we can see that what we have is our conditional formatting will give us these colorations. So what we can do is, let's see, I think I can copy and paste the conditional formatting. Let's see if I can do conditional formatting in this one here. Formats. Okay. So that will give us our formats there. And let's go ahead and paste special over here. Just formats. And that'll push OK. So now you'll see that everything in the green on quick glance is going to be, hey, good, we got plenty of money. Anything in the red means, hey, we're getting pretty close. Anything in the yellow is, you're kind of between that range. All right, so let's see how this guy works. So let's go ahead and say I'm going to throw some money into my savings account, which is code S. Let's just indicate out. And let's say I have 150 extra bucks right now. Boom. Now that immediately goes to 75 so I can quickly see where we are at. All right. Suppose you're like, I keep on going over on some category. What if I want to blacken it out? Well, let's go ahead and look at my conditional formatting. We're going to, hold on, I need to edit it. Okay, do you want to edit the existing? Okay. Oh, that's right. If you hit the edit, it does not bring up the original dialog box to add to. I kind of want to do that, but let's just go ahead and talk about how we do this anyway. So if cell value is less than 0.25, let's go ahead and use our good add between 0.2, let's do 0.26 and 0.85. This one is the neutral add. Now we're going to do, this time we're going to do a between 0.86 and 1. We are going to do a bad, and then now we're going to add another one, and we're going to do greater than 1. And now let's just go ahead and see which style works best. Let's do something like maybe this, get our attention. Okay, so let's change our rent to 1001. Let's do 1100. Maybe it's not going to get us that because I don't think heading 1 is necessarily something that's in there. That's a bad example. Let's see, manage this one. Oh, that's right. We can right click manage. So let's go ahead and change this to let's change it the whole thing to black. Push OK. Not sure what that, oh, you know what? That may not go over 1. That's just maybe a universally bad example. It's not seeming to go over 1. Let's bump that savings account up to 250, see if that works. Yeah, it's for whatever reason, it's not taking the over 1. I might just have to go in. Or it's because it is, let me do this. Let me go this one. Let's remove that one. Okay, there you go. So what was happening is the secondary one was overwriting it. So now let's go ahead and... let's go ahead and copy, and we're going to paste special again, and we're going to make sure just formatting is done. So now we have the greens, we have the yellow. Let's change our rent back just to 100. So now our rent is between the 85 and 100%. The donations is in the yellow. Everything else is in the green except savings. We budgeted a little bit too far. All right, so there's conditional formatting, editing up your borders, mass editing, and sums and sum ifs used in making a budget. I will see, let's see, what can I do to make this sheet available? I'll figure out a place to make this thing available. Check the comments in the video to see where that's at. So thanks for watching this video, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux. I hope you've enjoyed this video from Switched to Linux. If you'd like to help support the channel, check out the links at the top. There is another video over here. You can check out our Patreon page down here. And you can check out shop.switchedtolinux.com for information on a t-shirt like this or some other designs. Thanks for watching, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.